Hello everyone and welcome along to Live on Air tonight. It's David Bell and Stuart Manins here. Now what I'm going to do is just bring up our major screen share, and we're going to be talking to this throughout the evening. There won't be the camera quite on the presenters as much as it has been in the past. But before we do that, Stuart is well known to many of the people that watch Live on Air. Very briefly, Stuart, what's your background?
Well, I spent many years as a music lecturer, or a lecturer in music education, but I was trained as a musicologist, I was trained as a singer, and I was trained as a teacher.
That's great. And Stuart, what I'd like you to do is, we've got up on the screen share, because you're a music teacher and an educator, you've got a lovely reading voice. So how about taking this section of Matthew through for us?
I'd like to read it. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness?
It's a fantastic and extremely well-known reading, isn't it? Stuart, not only did you read it extremely well, but also you put emphasis particularly on that first verse. What was the stress that were you looking for stress on the word eye, or were you looking for stress on the word lamp or body?
Well, probably shared stresses there. The important words are eye and its function, lamp, and its situation, body.
Right, okay. So let's have a think about that. Stuart, one of the teachers that had a bit of an influence on me was the Reverend Dr. Jim Stuart, and I recently did a video on Jim's contribution to theology. Now, it so happened that Jim Stuart taught in Lewis and Clark College, along with the Reverend Richard Rawborough. And Richard Rawborough did an enormous amount of work on what we would call cultural exegesis. And that is where you're trying to exegete the Bible. You're trying to explain it verse by verse within the context of the customs, the language, the archaeology, all the bits and pieces, not reading too much into the text, but rather drawing things out from the text. So any comment about what you would understand by the eye as a lamp? What does that mean for you?
I don't know. I'd rather ask you the question. What do you think they meant? They being those who wrote this. What do you think they meant by saying the eye is a lamp?
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to draw on what Richard Rawborough said. I'm also going to draw on Kenneth Bailey, who really started the movement of cultural exegesis. And in my initial studies, when I was working as a minister in Timaru in the 1980s, I wrote a weekly column for the Timaru Herald that had a kind of a notoriety. You know, a lot of people would write in to sort of criticize it. But having said that, I made sure that whenever I wrote on biblical things, I was drawing on the scholarship of Kenneth Bailey. I was writing a master's thesis in New Testament on the parables of Jesus. So sayings like the eye as a lamp started to take on a totally new significance for me. And what I think it means, if the scholarship has led me in this conclusion, I think it's correct. When we talk about vision in our world, we have this idea that light comes in, falls on our retina, and gets processed somehow at the back of the brain, and we create a visual world in our brain. But in the ancient world, when they said the eye is a lamp, they literally meant that light streamed out from the lamp, from the eye. Your eyes were like lamps. So the light is going out. And that is a powerful, powerful difference in terms of cultural exegesis. I don't think there'd be many people in our world who would regard the eyes as lamps, literally.
And not only that, it's a reversal of the metaphor at the beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is a reversal, yes. Well, in ancient theories of vision, it wasn't just that the eyes were lamps, but the eyes were intimately connected to the concept, Richard Rohrbaugh says, of mind. But the mind is no more a thing in the brain than fly to the moon. What the mind is the heart. So the mind, the thought processes, etc., are all done through the heart. And if, therefore, your thoughts in your heart are not good, then what streams out from your eyes will not be good light.
And this gives greater predominance to feelings.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Whereas the modern way is to find meaning in thoughts.
Yeah, we tend to do our analysis, particularly for the thinking kind of personality. So if we went on, Jesus says in the saying, if your eyes are healthy, and what he's getting at there is the concept of your heart being filled with good light. The good light streams up from your heart and emanates out through your lamps. And when these good particles, because they're particles in the ancient world, just like when we're talking together, we've occasionally got little bits of spit flying out of our mouths, or when we're sweating, or all kinds of bodily excretion, what you've got are emanations from the lamp, the eyes, in exactly the same way. So if your thought in your heart is good, then your eyes will be healthy lamps. If the thoughts in your heart are not so good, then the emanations that are going out as beams of light from the lamps will fall on people and have the potential to do great harm. Now, you and I live in a modern world where we sort of think, well, this is all a whole lot of superstition. But believe me, in the ancient world, it is far from superstitious. It's actually the way in which they conceived the world worked. So when Jesus says, just for example's sake, let's go back up the page, the eye is the lamp of the body, the eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. What does it say next, Stuart?
But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness.
Right. And if the light within you is darkness,
how great is that darkness?
And that darkness is being emanated from your eyes out and affecting other people. Now, so that leads to a number of different possibilities, doesn't it?
It does. Okay, well, when I was in Israel, I kept hearing about the evil eye. And in fact, I was persuaded to buy this ornament.
You've got one there, but we're projecting the image on screen.
Oh,
so
I see. It's the same thing, isn't it?
It is the same thing.
Okay, so I realized that it meant something in that society, probably in others, 2,000 years ago particularly. or over quite a long time.
Well, if you go anywhere in Israel, if you go anywhere in Spain, Italy, all throughout the Middle East, and of course wherever Spanish-speaking, Portuguese-speaking countries have gone to, Mexico, Latin America, you will find shops and shops and shops which are dedicated simply to selling these symbols. Now, don't make the mistake of thinking that that symbol is in fact the evil eye. In Greek, the word evil eye, the phrase evil eye, is ophthalmos poneros, and it crops up in the Bible many times, or I should say a number of times. And what it is getting at is that emanation of bad particles out. The purpose of the symbol is to attract the bad particles so that the bad particles don't fall on you, your face, your body, but rather fall on that symbol.
It becomes a magnet.
It becomes a magnet indeed.
Yeah.
And as quite a widespread Latin phrase that Richard Rawborough drew attention to, similus similibus, like unto like, or like attracts like. So if your heart and eyes are full of evil, you will automatically be drawn to that symbol. Now, do you have any comment about the color of that symbol?
Yeah, well, eyes of all the people in Israel when I was there were brown, unless they were visiting Aryans, and there weren't many of those. So I presume that blue is probably foreign and therefore evil.
Yeah, foreign and strange. Now, how it came about, I think, in about the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC, you had a Celtic invasion of the area which is now called Galatia. You know, the New Testament book.
Yes, Galatians.
Galatians.
Yeah.
So those blue-eyed invaders started to be identified as land grabbers.
In fact, the ancestors of Hitler.
Well, yes, to some extent, that's right. There's also the question of bad hand gestures. Now, what do I mean by bad hand gestures? I mean a variety of rude signs that you can make by clenching your fist, by putting the middle finger up in the air, the phallic symbol. You could put your thumb between your first and second fingers, and you've got the symbol for intercourse. All of those bad hand gestures are like the symbol of the blue eye.
Yeah.
And they're intended, say you walk into a new village and you don't know anyone, and you suspect that someone is giving you the evil eye and you haven't got that kind of symbol on you. Instead, you give them the hand gesture, and the evil eye, like will be attracted to like, the evil eye will be drawn to the hand gesture, and therefore the bad particles and emanations won't fall on you.
I find that fascinating and so different from my background. The only hand gestures I knew were, here's a church and there's the steeple, open the door and there are all the people. But it shows my brethren background, which is a little bit different from this
very
rather rude world.
Yes. But of course, to the Middle Eastern mind at the time, this wasn't rude. This was a necessary thing to be done to protect yourself.
Oh, yes.
Now, there are a number of significant evil eye stories, and Richard Rawborough tells of one. He had a young female student from Arabia, from a very wealthy family, who was taking a course with him, and they were talking about the evil eye, and it deeply disturbed this student, whom I presume was about 19, 20, and she recounted a story of when she was a teenager. At the age of 13, someone had looked at her and she had felt it as the evil eye, and within a matter of days, all her hair fell out.
Yeah.
And her parents took her to clinics in London, where they tried to investigate what had happened, tried to cure it, etc. And it wasn't until, and the girl apparently became very upset about having to tell us, or not having to tell it, but telling it. It was no cures were forthcoming from Western medicine. But she was taken by her mother after some 18 months out into a place in the desert with an Islamic holy man, who took the girl and shook her and said, "Come out." And you can finish the story for me, Stuart. What was he indicating?
That's exorcism, and it's still practiced in certain fundamentalist places.
Yes. It's exorcism, and the demons come out. You can think in the Bible, a person might have had multiple demons. That's the story of
the chap in the graves across the Galilean lake. Yeah.
Legion.
Yeah.
Because there was a legion of devils in it.
It's not dissimilar from the stories of bone pointing in tribes in Africa, Aboriginal people in Australia.
Absolutely. So we may say superstition, but the powers of the mind at work here produce effects on the body. And I believe I've heard in Australian Aboriginal culture of a pointing of the bone, and people will die without ever having come in contact with the bone actually physically being pointed. So which suggests there's a field of mental awareness or spiritual awareness. So it's very hard to simply dismiss it as superstition. Now, I said that we've got a number of viewers in here, and I have enabled the live question pod. We're not using the cameras to broadcast ourselves. We're just sticking with the PDF at present. So if you want to feed any questions in as we talk about this, please feel free to do so. So moving on to the next slide, because I think this, after all of this talk of the badness of the blue eyes, I want to talk about similibus in a different way, like attracts like, with good hand gestures. Now, I'm not sure that I've got the hand gesture the right way around. I can't remember whether it's the left or the right hand, but this is meant to represent the Islamic woman Fatima. And Fatima's hand pointed like that, gestured like that, is the exact opposite of attracting an evil eye. If your heart is good and your eyes, lamps are pouring out good bodily particles, the good eye will be attracted to the good hand. And good hand gestures, so the open palm in Islamic culture is considered a way of knowing who a good person is.
But it's in our culture too. The handshake is the open hand extension. By the way, that's a right hand. It's got to be a right hand.
I think I've reversed it. I think the hand of Fatima is the left hand.
Okay, but that's a friendly gesture, that extended open palm, as indeed is it the salute. I'm carrying no weapon in my right hand, which is the deadly hand for most people. That's the gesture of I come unarmed and in peace.
Right. Now, let's put this into a very Methodist context. You may be interested to learn that Methodists actually participate in a worldwide sense in evil and good eye ceremonies at baptisms.
Do they?
You've never come across that before?
No. Well, we only had baptisms for infants. Oh, no. The other way around.
Yeah, you only had them for adults.
Only for adults, right. Yes, that's right.
Well, the context here, and again, I'm very grateful to Richard Rawborough and Kenneth Bailey for pointing this out. If you went to a baptism in a Methodist church in New Mexico or Mexico, and possibly other Latin American congregations, wherever there's Spanish speaking and I think Portuguese speaking as well. What will happen is that instead of those kinds of evil eye symbols like that being pinned to the diaper, you will find that the baby's diaper at a baptism is liberally sprinkled with symbols of red chili peppers. And they serve exactly the same function as these blue-eyed symbols.
It'd be dreadful if someone read that literally, wouldn't it? It would be devastating to the baby.
That is why in the baptism ceremony of some New Mexican congregations, the baby is held up high immediately after the baptism. And the congregation, as the minister holds the baby up, the congregation are all required to dip their heads and not look, just in case there is someone in there who has the evil eye. And the second level of protection against the evil eye is the pinning of the charm to the diaper. Now, I find that sociologically extremely fascinating. So chili peppers on diapers at baptisms is not part and parcel of the Kiwi Methodist, Presbyterian, Anglican scene. It's certainly not part of the Brethren Baptist scene. But actually, we are very minute-sized congregations in relation to these large Hispanic congregations of Mexico, New Mexico, etc. So the question is, and I put this to you because I think you've traveled a bit in Israel and Italy and so on. My question to you is, do you think that culturally we have the answers and they don't?
I'm always wary of having the answers and other people not having them, no matter what question you asked me. And I presume this is subsumed under that natural reluctance to say, yes, I have the answers, which other cultures don't have.
Yeah, and the more that we look at this cultural diversity and see it coming up in things like the evil eye and so on, the more we realize that we may have sanitized our Bibles in a way that is completely illogical. So
not only illogical, but unhelpful, because symbols understood as symbols can be extraordinarily helpful.
Yeah, precisely.
But literally, they can be damaging.
So what we get, whenever the phrase evil eye occurs, English Bible translations actually wipe it out, primarily because the translators had started to grow in a culture that regarded this kind of thing as superstition. So they dispensed with the superstition and brought in other phrases, as we saw at the start of our reading.
And can I make another point here? I think there's a tremendously important thing, that if you realize that, then you have a built-in safeguard against treating the Bible literally.
Well, you have a built-in safeguard by treating the Bible literally, in the sense that this is what the original said, but we cannot take it literally.
That's right.
So we now could perhaps look at Matthew 6:22 in a new light. How about reading the same text, but in replacing the phrase, if your eyes are unhealthy, with, but if you have the evil eye. Now, can you read that through for us now?
The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if you have the evil eye, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness?
Now you've suddenly got a whole new way of looking at this terribly familiar passage. It's trying to contrast the idea of the good light and the light of the evil eye. Now, I think that is extremely interesting. So we're coming closer to the end. I still haven't seen any questions feeding through, so maybe the chat, question pod isn't working for folk. I'd like us to now start to look at John chapter 9, very well-known story, and we're going to just finish off by a look at magic spells and the evil eye. So would you like to read this passage for us, Stuart?
As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus. "But this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." After saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. "Go," he told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam." This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing.
Well, it's a tremendous reading, but all this talk of light and so on within the reading now takes on, again, a whole new dimension.
Yeah.
And here we've got a clear example of an ordinary, everyday magic spell, the mud and the spit. Now, spit is another one of those emanations that come from us. Think of all the bodily particles which emanate from us. If we didn't wash, we would start to smell bad. You agree? Now, well, no, folks, Stuart is not agreeing with us, so we've got to, he's nodding his head benignly. No, he is agreeing.
I've lived with people who shower every day.
Right.
So I'm limited in my experience.
Well, what Jesus is doing here is taking an emanation from his body, which throughout the Old Testament is regarded as unclean. All bodily fluids, unclean. You have to cleanse yourself of them. And so he takes spit, puts it in mud, and puts it on the man's eyes. So he's actually, when he says, "I am the light of the world," he's actually saying all my bodily emanations, including my spit, are not evil.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is actually the focal point of the story. Again, we wouldn't pick it up unless we had access to the idea that the eye as a lamp literally means lamp. Any comments about that?
Yeah, well, I just think that's great exegesis. And no one really should feel comfortable in talking about the scriptures without asking the questions that have led to this discussion.
Well, I think that's right in general. I mean, it's not hard for study groups and the like all around the Methodist Church and beyond to actually do, it's not that it's homework, but it's fascinating homework to learn some of these things. And of course, then when you put them in the pulpit, you get a fantastic opportunity to explain what you've learnt as a group. This is what I mean by social learning.
Oh yes, it's not learning to socialise.
It's not learning to.
That's my educational background.
Well, I see that Max has sent through a question, and I've selected it, and he's asked, does the evil eye have a hereditary component historically? What an excellent question, Max. And if you go back to the beginning of that chapter of John's Gospel, that's exactly the question that the disciples asked.
Yeah.
Who sinned?
This man or his father's?
Yeah. And so the concept, the Old Testament concept of the sins of the fathers being passed on or visited upon the subsequent generations, was it to the
third generation or the fourth generation, whatever
number of generations down? Yeah, it's not a hereditary component. It's a family component. Now, this comes out all the time when we're looking at the parables of Jesus, and we get amazing questions. Well, no, let's not look at the parables. Let's just look at the genealogies. Why do they tell these genealogies in both Old and New Testaments? They're trying to establish your credentials, your family line. Max might say, oh, I'm Max Thompson. If he was in Maori culture, they would say, well, where do you come from, Max? Yeah? Because the place where you're born is identified with your whānau, your family. So you see that in how Jesus is entitled Jesus of Nazareth. What good can come out of Nazareth? And in the same way here in this story, the question is that Jesus is taking the Old Testament concept and actually saying, I believe, you're asking the wrong question. It's not that the man or his parents sinned, but it is that I, whose even my spit is good for you. That's the question to ask. What are the good things about me, the Christ, in relation to you? Whether you're a sinner, whether your parents are sinners, whether you're blind or sighted, crippled, lame, it really doesn't matter.
Am I right in thinking then that the good is defined in terms of the outcome, not the means? So what is seen as bad, like spit, can be used if it makes someone see who couldn't see, then it becomes useful.
Exactly. And the same is true of those obscene hand gestures. They become useful when you're the stranger in the village and you want friendship. You don't want some sod giving you bad particles, which will corrupt your body.
It's also telling you that things aren't intrinsically bad or good. They're only bad or good in their effect on yourself and others.
Well, I think, and I totally agree with that, but I think in terms of the John story, it's to be cast as Jesus is the good spit.
Oh yes, okay.
Now, I don't know that I don't think you'll go into many pulpits and hear Jesus referred to as the good spit, but the story clearly has that.
The spitting image of God.
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
That's a theological insight. My one and only.
Okay, Max, we've done answering your question, and we've come to the end of this slightly experimental way of doing a live on air. Normally we would be broadcasting ourselves, but tonight we're just using the PDF to focus our thoughts. So we've got to that time at 7:34. We normally go 35-40 minutes. So tonight we're going to close it off at this point and say thank you very much for watching. We've got some exciting YouTube videos coming out this Wednesday and Thursday, and I hope you can watch those also as soon as possible. And this live on air will be in our online classroom night school in the archive section by tomorrow. Thank you indeed. Good night.
Good night.